There are millions of good schools in the world, on all the inhabited continents, and probably in all the countries that have organized schools. But how to transform good schools into excellent or great ones? This is an Australian journalist's view on the subject. I found this interesting article and hopefully fascinating article on the Sydney Morning Herald's website. It is one of Australia's major daily newspapers. And I'll summarize this news item here in this video. The 4 secret ingredients that can turn good schools into great ones, by Ms. Henrietta Cook, published on March the 28th, 2019. As always, I declare this disclaimer, no copyright infringement intended, but hopefully this video will inspire educators of various kinds, right from the rank and file teachers into the actual educational researchers and planners, and of course all responsible parents, all responsible students even, and then all responsible non-teaching faculty members at various schools around the world. If there was a simple recipe for improving schools, governments, principals, and teachers would be diligently following every step. While every school strives to boost student results, the key ingredients that drive this improvement are difficult to pinpoint. The AG's Schools That Excel project has shown a light on some of the common themes present in schools that are boosting students' performance. Here are the top 4. 1, good relationships. The best schools go out of their way to forge strong ties between teachers, students, and parents. Everyone is on the same journey together. When Maria Otto became principal at Sunbury Downs College, she had to work hard to get parents to embrace her new vision for the school. She wanted students to achieve top marks and to attend the state's most prestigious universities. We had parents who didn't have the same successful experience in their own schooling. She told the AG's Schools That Excel Awards night on Wednesday, meaning March the 27th, 2019. We wanted more for their children. We ended up with a common language. We said to them, your child can obtain something that you perhaps didn't have the privilege to. Many of the schools, crowned Schools That Excel winners, have rolled out student voice initiatives. Students are listened to and have a say in their learning. For instance, at Westbourne Grammar, students resolve disputes through restorative practice, which aim to mend relationships instead of handing out punishments, or which aims to mend relationships and so forth. Students also run assemblies and are involved in a proposed overhaul of the school uniform. Australia is one of the relatively few highly industrialized countries that still have school uniforms. Out of the just about at all the public schools, I'm not sure about the private ones. I can only think offhand of one Western industrialized country that has school uniforms, and that is Britain, one of whose colonies Australia was. Well, there may be, I'm not sure about the southern European countries like Portugal, Spain, Italy, or Greece. Here in Asia, at least several countries, probably many, have school uniforms. And here in the Philippines, where I'm living, even at many private schools, there are school uniforms. And in Japan, probably there are school uniforms, or I would assume so, probably in South Korea, I would assume in China, and so forth. At Elwood College, Year 7 students sit down with a teacher to discuss their learning likes and dislikes before they start school. Type in the name of your school to find out how it has fared over the past decade, what its graduates do after finishing school, and more. The age education schools that excel. 2. High expectations. A culture of high expectations permeates these schools regardless of whether they are public or private or serve disadvantaged or advantaged communities. Teachers don't have assumptions about what certain students are capable of achieving and set high standards for all students because, well, when we have students of varying levels of ability and performance, a rather common temptation for the teachers is to lower the standards so that the weakest students could keep up and that they wouldn't have to give failing grades, which would then require remedial teaching and at the very least remedial tests and or exams or projects. The same amount of work and effort is expected from all students. Students are given confidence to achieve their dreams and are exposed to a variety of careers and further education opportunities. This is particularly apparent at Murrayville Community College, where students are bussed out of remote farming communities in northwestern Victoria, Victoria being one of Australia's 6 federal states, to universities in Adelaide and Melbourne. They are told that they can achieve anything as long as they work hard. And that is the big question. How do you, or how do we as teachers, because I'm also a teacher by God's grace, so how do we teachers motivate our students and keep them motivated? That's the important thing now. Professor John Hattie, who leads the Melbourne Education Research Institute at the University of Melbourne, said the best schools don't stream students according to their ability. A lot of schools have structures in place that tell the children where they perform and how they are going to perform, he said. You can assume that children in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th stream are not going to do well, and they get that message loud and clear. And I assume that the professor's point is that if they are given such a negative message, their motivation level will drop. And I would say, as a long-time substitute teacher, but by God's grace anyway, some kind of teacher, that there are then those students who are smart enough to achieve even excellent grades, but some of them just do not care. They seem to be content with just passing each course. And then there are those common excuses. The teachers, or some of the teachers, don't know how to teach, or are too boring, are too mechanical, are not interactive enough, are not funny enough, are not exciting enough, are not surprising enough, are not varied enough. Maybe some artistically inclined students might say are not dramatic enough. Sorry for this digression. 3, flexibility. These schools don't promote one narrow idea of success. They encourage students to pursue their interests and tailor their education accordingly. Eltham College principal Simone Leplastrier speaks proudly about high-achieving former school captain who completed VCE French, literature, extended investigations, and hospitality. Other independent schools I have worked at would find that it may not be a good look for them to do hospitality because it is not physics or literature. He said hospitality is basically a fine word for hotel and restaurant management, or especially restaurant management, culinary studies, and so forth. What I am really trying to do is to give the children as much flexibility to extend their intellect within the VCE. Mentone Grammar School principal Mal Cater said schools should not assume that all students want to attend university. I was speaking to one of our very intelligent year 11 students the other day who told me he has no intention of going on to university. He told the Age event. We have to be accommodating for a generation that may not choose that pathway. Schools that offer this flexibility let students enroll in rigorous VCAL programs as a vocational alternative to the VCE. Students are exposed to excellent programs at TAFEs and might begin apprenticeships in their chosen field while still at school. 4, clear instructions and goals. Students have a clear idea of what is expected of them in every class and work towards goals. During structured lessons, teacher demonstrates the skills that students need to learn and constantly check their understanding of key concepts. In education circles, this is called explicit instruction. And a very fine way of instruction as long as it works, as long as the students, or most of them at least, have the courage to admit that they don't understand or they are unsure or they disagree if they don't understand or they are unsure or they disagree. And especially the students who have got over this idea that if the teacher comes from another continent, somehow he or she is to be feared or suspected of despising those students, or anyway, you should not communicate with him or her as directly as you would communicate with a teacher of your own ethnic group. I have been noticing implicitly in some of my students here in the Philippines that kind of attitude. May the good Lord forgive me if I am wrong or to the extent that I'm wrong. It's a model that has been adopted at Sunbury Downs College, where teachers write out learning outcomes on a whiteboard at the start of every class. They spell out what students should be able to achieve. Every student knows what they have to learn. Year 12 students Amber Karras said, "It's a really good map. You know where the journey of your class is going." The Grattan Institute's school education director, Peter Goss, said, "The schools that have won awards have done it the hard way by improving their teaching, conversations with the school community, and boosting students' confidence. That's a sign that something is real, something is different, and that something is important," he said. It should be celebrated, and then it should be backed up and understood to see which parts of it can be replicated and how. Okay, so this was that interesting article about turning good schools into excellent ones.